All right, I'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us. So I'm Paul. This is Julia. She'll be helping out. She'll be there if you guys have questions or whatever in the chat box. She'll be there to answer them and then also feed you other information along the way as well. So this was a basement remodel that we finished in October 2019. So just a few months prior to COVID shutting everything down. So it was kind of a blessing for our homeowners. So I'll kind of walk you through what we did. So they had a basement originally in their home, and I'll show you some pictures here in a little bit, but it was a finished basement in the sense of there was drywall on the walls, there was carpet on the floor, but it wasn't necessarily a totally usable space for them. So there were some things that we addressed to make it a much better space that worked a lot better for their family. You'll see here along this outside wall here, so we have some demo wall and excavate. So there weren't any windows along this side of the wall, and the laundry room was functional, but not greatly functional for them and how they wanted to use the laundry room. So we ended up doing some stuff in there. And then the idea really with this whole remodel started with the idea of wanting to make this like a guest suite area. They had this large, what on this plan was being called storage unit or storage area, but it was actually, a large walk-in closet, but it didn't have any shelving in it. And it was just full of boxes and stuff. So it wasn't really being used as it intended. So we looked at it and said, wow, we could really, expand this area here and really create a nice bathrooms and create a guest suite in the basement space. And as part of doing that, we can also make this laundry room a lot more usable for how they were wanting to do it. So that was kind of the premise of the project, as well as our homeowners were really into, home yoga, working out at home, that type of thing. So they really wanted a space that they could go and shut the doors. That was a big part of this whole thing, is just shut the doors and get in their own space and be by themselves, and let the children kind of, be in other parts of the house while they just took some time to relax, as well as creating this space that was long and awkward. And how do we really make this a better space for them as they continue to live in their home? So they weren't using this basement space very much. So as we kind of went through the project, we started looking at, okay, what can we do to really make this more usable and inviting for them as a family? Some of the features of this house really lent itself to some of the aspects of universal design. So the idea of having access to the outdoors that anybody should be able to access. So this is, we have a flush entry going out to the backyard, which leads to the driveway. And so if somebody should ever have a walker or a wheelchair, this space really lends itself really well to accessibility for them. And now that we have a suite downstairs, it really could be a parent moving in, that type of thing down the road for them. So we really wanted to look at it as we were putting this together, is how do we make this investment the best investment for them, so they're not having to redo things in the future should they ever need to. The other piece of this is there wasn't the connectivity, and we'll kind of show you in some of the photographs that we'll look at later. There wasn't that connectivity to the backyard, and just changing up some of the coloring in this basement space, the type of flooring that we had, it really started to make that connection between the two rooms. And that's call that biophilia. That's the kind of the term that's being thrown around now, is making that connection between the indoors and outdoors, and how do we make that a healthier mental space for people, and just creating a space that makes you feel a little bit more warmer when you're in it. So this was our original basement. Some of the things that we started hearing our homeowners talk about was, we have this weird wall that was you can kind of see where it's stepping here. It's just a cap on top of the foundation wall. So this is what the foundation wall is doing on the outside of the house. So it's kind of a strange, unused area. Then we had this exposed pipe that was not, it's just kind of there, being a visual detraction to the room. So we really wanted to make this, clean this up and make it more cohesive. You can also see here, just looking at this, that the walls aren't straight in the basement. So you have, a larger gap at the bottom than you do here. It was just visually, it just wasn't working well for that entire space. And your eye catches it, but sometimes you don't know why it really bothers you. You also see here, we ended up having to open up the wall here to deal with some moisture issues. There were some existing carpet in the basement, which I'll talk about as well, why we don't like to have carpets in our basements. So I was on vacation in the airport I guess it was over the summer of 2019 as we were kind of going through the design with the homeowners, and I got a panic call from the homeowners. We had this huge onslaught of rain just dumping, and what we ended up finding was this window actually filled up. So it's a window well, and it actually filled up like a fish tank. So they had water completely filling up this window well. Water then started, coming through the window, leaching down into the wall space, which then got into the carpet. Ultimately, what we found was that it was a result of downspouts on the outside of the house and poor drainage away from the basement space. That was a result of the problem. So this was obviously an ongoing issue. We didn't quite know why that was happening until we had this large rainfall. They also had noticed, as they had stored boxes downstairs, boy, the carpets, it seemed a little wet. The boxes were wet. They had some liquor in some of the boxes. They had assumed maybe the bottle had broken or something like that. So it wasn't, really prevalent what the issues were down there. So ultimately, we ended up finding that there were other issues as a result of, water from the outside of the house getting into the basement space.
Paul, didn't you say that that they were new to the home? They've only lived
They were,
there
yeah, that's right. They had
Mhm.
purchased the home and they hadn't lived in it very long. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's good. So here's a picture of kind of what has become the TV area. This is the area going upstairs to the basement. You'll notice just it's a lot brighter here in this space now, just than it was originally. Paint colors make a huge difference, as well as lighting and just adding natural light to the basement space as well.
Yeah, that natural light made it so much brighter.
So again, you'll see, even though we have the flooding of natural light into this space, it's still not the best. Like I was mentioning earlier, we did have a lot of consistent moisture in the basement, lots of musty smells. We did find mold in the drywall as a result of just moisture being there. And they had MDF baseboard as well, which had swelled. And, the previous homeowners, I think they just painted over everything and made it look good to sell it. Don't necessarily like carpets in basements. They do a good job of holding moisture. And they're not the best option for that. I should say that this entire space downstairs really was untapped, usable space for them, because they didn't want their child going down there and playing. And so they were essentially not using half of their home because they were kind of afraid of what was going on in the basement space.
Hi, Linda, welcome. We just kind of got started, but we'll, Paul's going now.
Yeah, so again, just these odd angles and things. So we really wanted to create that calming feel in this basement space. So creating smoother transition between walls, using color variation to break it up a little bit and define the spaces of the basement. That's kind of an important thing when you're really thinking about how you're going to configure furniture in this really long, narrow space. Is how how can we best break it up to make it look intentional, and using color on the walls is a great way to do that, to really help define specific areas within this long space. So I had mentioned earlier, we had the moisture coming in. So one of the ways that we want to deal with moisture in a concrete slab is put a vapor barrier on top of it. And then also changing out the floor system to something that's going to be a little bit more amenable to moisture in basements. So ended up with a nice play area for their toddler to come downstairs and play. You'll see we got a little workout room here on the back end of the house too. So, but as a result of kind of some of the things that we implemented, like I said, that the homeowners now have a space where they can feel comfortable having their kids come down and play. It's now free of mold and toxins, and so it really becomes this great wellness space for them. Let's see. So this is a look into the bedroom space. And then we're looking into what was the original closet area or storage room. And then this is, another look straight into where the storage room was. And this is the room we ultimately ended up building out. The bathroom we ended up doing was pulling this wall here more into the bedroom, just a couple feet, to give us the additional space that we needed to get all of the fixtures in there. So our sunlit bedroom, so this was, so no sunlight in this bedroom, and ultimately getting a ton of natural light into this space. And again, paint colors make a big difference with how a room can feel as well. This is our bathroom that we built out. And so as part of what we want to look at when we're doing our remodels is we want to look at long-term maintenance for everything that we're putting in. So when we're looking at, say, grouts for tile, we're using a grout that's going to have all the color offerings that anybody could want, but also be water resistant, stain protection, crack protection. It's basically a install once and be done type of product, and it has it's Green Guard certified, so we're not dealing with the toxins that you get with, say, an epoxy grout. So it has a lot of the properties of epoxy, but with the minimal harmful chemicals that come along with a product like that. Or if you're dealing on the other end of the spectrum where it's more cement based, you're going to have more long-term maintenance with it. So we're kind of hitting that middle ground. And then talked a little bit about universal design before. We also incorporated some of that into this bathroom space as well. So looking at flush entry shower. So should you ever have a walker or a wheelchair, it's possible to be able to use this shower. There would need to be a few modifications that would need to be made. It was not the full intent of this, but we did make some of the availability, say for grab bars, or if we ever needed to put a handheld shower, we have backing in the walls so that we can easily adapt in the future should we ever need to. So some forethought was put into how this bathroom might need to be used in the future. You don't always have to do all of those features right away.
And just so everyone knows, I'm actually, I saved this presentation and I'm sending you guys a link in the chat right now. So if you guys, I know some of you came a little late. If you wanted to save our link, please visit the chat right now. Okay.
So we have low voltage lighting, and then as well as the what is this? I guess it's our bath fan. So our bath fan we ended up installing on a motion sensor. This helps conserve energy. It's only being used when absolutely necessary. But the nice thing is I know for myself with kids, you make sure the bath fan does always get turned on. So we are going to continue to remove that moisture. And it's going to, be removed for the amount of time that you always want your fan to stay on. So that being 20 minutes after you actually leave the bathroom, And we can make those adjustments on the fan. So once it last senses motion, that it can then continue to run for, say, an additional 20 minutes beyond that. Water sense faucet. And then our cabinetry for this was installed, supplied by Elias Woodwork out of Canada. So they have some very environmentally friendly practices. I like it as a budget alternative in some cases, though they provide what are called RTA cabinets, or ready to assemble, similar to an IKEA style cabinet, but everything's made out of plywood. So you're going to get a little bit more durability out of it, and it can be very customizable as well. So they can make it to whatever dimension that we need it made, as well as having lots of different color options, wood variation options, that type of thing. So the at-home wellness center. So this became super important as we stepped into COVID, allowed our homeowners to continue to have the lifestyle that they wanted without having to go to the gym. They were able to have their at-home workout area, as well as, flooding the space with natural light. That was kind of a key piece of this entire project. And just a space for them to be able to get away and be by themselves and get overall relaxation. So our homeowners, like I said before, they've gained basically double the size of their house that they were using before with this space. So they've really taken to it and are using it very consistently now. This product was designed by Fitch and Company, and so they do a wonderful job of helping kind of bring all the elements that our homeowners are looking for into the projects, and really listening to what it is that we want to achieve as well on those projects. If you want additional information, you can always visit our house website. It will have this project as well as many others on it. And it'll also be available through this link if you download this through the chat. So thank you. Appreciate your time. If anybody has any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself or put something in the chat or raise your hand or whatever, and we'll answer any questions you might have.
Hey, thanks, Paul. That was awesome.
Yeah, great.
I had a question about, I think early on you showed kind of the uneven walls, like where things were crazy, like wonky, and there were pipes sticking out, and now it looks very, kind of smoothed out. So I'm wondering, like, did the space end up reducing in size by like a few inches or something?
Just a few inches, yeah. So I'll look at this wall here in particular, and you can kind of see how we built it out. Just, I think, like 2 inches. We just did just enough to kind of hide that pipe.
I see.
The pipe was really kind of the location piece for all that, without having to redo the plumbing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
and
that
then
was done really beautifully.
The waterproofing seems like it was a huge issue, because I know we have, like a,
I'm sure you do, yeah.
Like an unfinished half basement sort of thing, and
okay,
once in a while we, like only when we have days in a row of downpours do we start to get some water seepage and stuff like that. But I'm just wondering, it seems like you were talking about that with the carpet, especially holding the moisture, and so how much effort and stuff went into that?
So in this case, let me see if I can find a good photo. So so this area back here in the corner, this was really, we had some downspout issues back here, and then it kind of rolled I guess over here kind of into this where the bedroom space is and all that. When we removed this wall in particular, between what became the wellness room and the bedroom, we found that there was a footing there. So there was two different pores that had kind of come together, and we had basically a natural break in the concrete, and it became an area where it was easy moisture intrusion for coming up. It was kind of the weak point in the floor system. So we ended up installing an interior footing drain. We didn't do it around the entire basement because it wasn't necessary, but we did do it kind of in this back corner area, the area where we had seen more prevalent amount of moisture. Once we fixed the downspout issue outside, that solved the problem of moisture coming into the wall. It was then just hydronic pressure coming up through the slab that we would see just moisture kind of seeping up through. Once we put that footing drain in, then that creates basically the weak point in the floor system for the water to go to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I was wondering if it was just water coming in through the window, but like you said, it's also up from underneath. So
that's right. Yeah.
Massive.
I would say more often than not in Seattle, we see it pushing up through cracks in the floor, that kind of thing. It's weird though. The weather's changing, and we're seeing projects all the time where the homeowner has told us we've never seen water in our basement, and then all of a sudden we get a heavy rain and water just starts coming in.
So Paul, you mentioned you put in an interior drain, and I'm not a builder, so I'm sorry if this is an obvious question, but so I've heard of like the exterior perimeter drains, but what do you tie the interior drain to?
Yeah, so in most cases, the ideal situation is that it gets tied into the sewer line, which is what we did in this case. As long as we can basically get the fall, so we have gravity drain to the drain. Otherwise, we end up putting in a sump pump, and then everything goes to the sump pump, and then from the sump pump it goes into the sewer line. Or in some cases of areas of Seattle, we can actually get it out of the house and not have to go into the sewer line. But more often than not, we have to go into the sewer line.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, do we have somebody in the chat? Paul, if you want to see the chat box. If you can find it.
I can't control it because you have control of my screen.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see here. What kind of flooring was used? What are the dimensions of the bathroom? What should I keep in mind to create a zero barrier shower? It was directed to me. I will direct that question to Paul. But you know what? If you can actually, Girardi, if you can send me your email, I'll email you those answers. And thank you guys. If you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. Paul, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so let me go ahead and I'm going to answer those few questions, because I think there's kind of an important question here. So with let me go back here. We'll go. So the size of the bathroom.
I just sent it to everyone in the chat so you can see it now.
Yeah, so it was like 6 feet wide, and I think this dimension says just under 10 feet. The original intent with this bathroom is the homeowner really wanted a bathtub as well. We just couldn't fit a bathtub in here without doing major remodel on the space, and we were really trying to keep this wall between the laundry and the bathroom the same, so we weren't having to do a lot of additional replumb work. So so I say 6 by 10 is roughly, and we got a really nice large shower out of it. As for the flooring, so we used woodpecker flooring, their Brecon line of flooring. So it's an LVT. If you ever should check out their website, it's an interesting company, and they have a lot of really great ideals behind kind of their product. So we ended up going with the LVT. It's not always the best option, say if you want to, bring vinyl into the home, but it also is a great option. I really deter our homeowners from bringing carpet into their basement spaces. I don't like carpet in basements. They just tend to breed all kinds of different things. So it was a great alternative for us, as well as helped us play with the budget a little bit. The other option that we looked at was doing an engineered wood floor down there. Ultimately, we decided that for budget purposes, we ended up going with the other option, but it brought those wood tones into the space. What was the other part of that question, Julia?
It's in the chat. So it was, what are the dimensions of the bathroom? What should I keep in mind to create a zero barrier shower?
Okay. So definitely, well, zero barrier, right? So being flush entry, so no steps. If you're doing it in the basement space, you're definitely going to have to dig out your basement floor and drop it a couple inches in the shower area, so that we can make that recess into the floor and get everything to flush out. So basements are a little bit more difficult. Types of drainage, that's always an important piece. As you're looking at the design, do you want a linear drain, or do you just want a standard, floor mount drain? So looking at that and placement of where that might be. If you're doing a flush entry on the main floor, you have a couple different options. So if you're gonna do it with tile, and you want tile outside of the shower as well as in the shower, that's where you're going to get the most seamless transition between. But you're going to have to recess your floor system. So your framing in the floor is going to have to be recessed as part of the process. That's not inexpensive in some cases. In some cases, it's not doable. In other cases, it is doable. Just each home's going to lend itself a little bit differently to each of those, to what's going to be best. There are other options if you wanted to do a shower pan. So say like a traditional shower pan, there's companies out there like Best Bath who have an acrylic pan that has a 3/4 inch plywood incorporated into it. So it's a very stable pan, and we can do a flush entry with that. It's not a true flush entry. It has a little bevel to the pan itself, so then it kind of slopes down to the floor. It's only a matter of, maybe 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch, but there is that slight difference, but they're definitely made for easier remodeling. So say you have a bathroom on the main floor that just has a tub and you want to make that replacement, easy to pull that tub and drop one of these pans in and make it work with the floor system you currently have, or putting a new floor system in. So there's definitely some options out there. I would always encourage you to, if you're thinking about doing, flush entry and thinking of like universal design or aging in place, is look at the walls of the shower as well. And even if you don't put backing, or even if you don't put grab bars in right away, have the backing in place. So should you ever need to add a grab bar, you have the ability to easily put that grab bar wherever you want. And you're not having to get into another remodel as a result of needing to put grab bars in or change shower heads or something like that. So just a little bit of forethought and how you might want to deal with the space in the future. It's an investment in your home, and you want to make sure that you're doing making the best investment and thinking about all the different pieces that could potentially come up later in life. I will say too, it's also great on the resale end of the home. The MLS now has the ability to for you to market whether your home is accessible or adaptable or visitable to people coming into your home, whoever it might be, whether it's occupants or friends or family. So it's a great marketing piece for you should you ever need that in the future. I hope that answered your questions. Did I get it? Was that everything that was on there, Julia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great question, Gerardi.